In Africa, agriculture is a big deal. Here, it is the single most important economic activity that employs a sizable percentage of the continent's working population. In the Sahel region, where the climate is arid and the land dry, the story is different. Ironically, most of the people here depend on the land for their survival through nomadic cattle herding and farming on millet, maize, sorghum, and other crops that help to sustain their subsistence lifestyle. With desertification, drought, and climate change taking their toll on the land, millions of people have been driven into poverty, hunger, and even forced to migrate to other lands in search of fodder for animals and survival for their families. To mitigate the challenges, the African Union endorsed the Great Green Wall in 2007. It is an ambitious program designed to combat climate change and desertification across the national borders of participating countries in North Africa, the Sahel, and the Horn of Africa. In Nigeria, the Great Green Wall became an agency of the federal government in 2015. Before then, it operated as a department in the Ministry of Environment. Who would believe this was once a green portion of land, now turned dry by the fast encroaching desert which has spread across the frontline states of Adamawa, Bauchi, Borno, Gombe, Kano, Katsina, Kebbi, Jigawa, Sokoto, Zamfara, and Yobe. With desertification, farming is a nightmare and poverty a reality for the people who depend on agriculture in this part of the country.
The primary mandate of the National Agency for Great Green Wall in Nigeria and in other countries which we work together is primarily to implement the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification, which came into force in 1994. It's a UN protocol which Nigeria signed in 1995. And coming down to the actual mandate of the agency, drawn from the convention, is to check the movement of desertification in Nigeria and also reclaim areas that have been desertified.
If, according to the Minister of Environment, Dr. Mohammed Abubakar, who spoke at the 2021 World Desertification and Drought Day, the states affected by desertification have a population of over 40 million people and are home to over 95% of livestock population in Nigeria and have played a major role in the production of food for domestic consumption and export crops. Then, reclaiming the blighted area is a task the National Agency for the Great Green Wall must accomplish or face the threat of unrestrained desert encroachment with its attendant socioeconomic implications.
To anybody who knows the area we're working about, is a vast area, 11 states constituting about 40% of the landmass of this country. And also appreciate the fact that environmental activities, especially field investment in the drylands in terms of the nature of our work, is a very, very slow process, capital intensive, vast area to cover. So the initial target is about 2 million hectares of land, which we need to work in recover and slow down the process at the same time, with the population about 43 million. So 5 years is a very small time.
Aside inadequate and dilapidated infrastructure, which the Muhammadu Buhari administration met on arrival, different parts of the country were afflicted with huge and peculiar ecological challenges, some of which had devastated the lands, caused pollution and coastal management problems, and in some cases rendered the people homeless. 6 years after, the narrative is changing already. For President Buhari and the people, it is a relationship built on trust.
President Buhari is always believed by majority of Nigerians because of his antecedents. Right from his days as a military person, he will say and he will do. That was why he got elected 30 years after power had been taken from him as a military man. 30 years after he got elected as a Democrat, and 4 years after the first time, he got re-elected again. It shows that the people believe in the president. And that's why the challenges we have now, that belief is still there.
Yes, indeed, they believe that President Buhari will confront and conquer the challenges. Already, the situation is beginning to change for the better. The Ecological Fund Office, National Agency for the Great Green Wall, and other relevant institutions have been fortified to address the environmental problems and restore the confidence of the people in the ability of the federal government to provide for them.
The government, all these years, have tried to contain this through different establishment of different MDAs, different policies. You know, we have Soil Erosion Department, Ministry of Environment, which handles soil erosion in the southeast, basically, because that's why we have most of the soil erosion. You have Federal Department of Forestry and the Forest Research Institute of Nigeria to take care of forest management, especially in the Middle Belt. And then, of course, you have us who are looking at the issue of desertification. In addition to that, the research institutes we have in our universities, in our higher institutions, are helping us in doing some research, turn out results from us. So we are moving away from going to raise seedlings in the traditional way to using today's technology to improve our work in the field.
Available statistics show that Nigeria loses thousands of hectares of land annually to desertification. To halt the southward advancement of the menace, there is an ongoing process to build a contiguous green wall stretching all the way from Kebbi to Borno states and covering a distance of 1,500 kilometers long by 15 kilometers wide. About 60 million drought-resistant tree seedlings are currently being planted on an estimated 2 million hectares of land. To achieve the initiative, which is expected to mitigate the impact of climate change and restore the land for use by the large number of people that depend on it for livelihood.
So we've been able to do many kilometers of shelter belts, so many hectares of woodlots, some livelihood activities like smart agriculture or climate friendly agriculture, bearing in mind the impacts of the climate change on agricultural process, especially in Africa, where we have a serious issue of dry lands. We have serious issues of drought from time to time. And we've also been able to provide alternative livelihood to the people. Hitherto, 100% of the people rely on the natural resources being given to them from the land. And the more you explore, the more degradation you suffer, and the less agricultural productivity the land becomes. Coupled with the fact that you are in an area where the soil is not properly covered by vegetation. So whenever you have you have storm, it washes away the topsoil. Whenever it rains, sometimes torrential, wash away the topsoil and leave you with unproductive land. So it's a combination of so many things, and it will take years and years for one to be able to say, yes, we've been able to achieve our target in this part of the country.
The Great Green Wall program is community-driven, with emphasis on land rehabilitation and conservation of natural resources. It is Nigeria's answer to the question of the twin ecological problems of desertification and drought, but dealing with the situation comes with peculiar challenges.
For us, we have to go down to the communities and get land from them. You get land from them, you plant it out, you look after it for 2, 3, 4 years, hand it over to the community for sustainability. And you and I know that this is just easier said than done. One, the land does not belong to the federal government of Nigeria. The land belongs to the community by our Land Act of, I think, 1991. The community owns the land. And you go there, they give you a land, for instance. This is the first sort of challenge we face. After you have gone, one of the farmers may say, no, I'm not giving that land again. I want it for my millet. I want it for my maize. And he goes there and pulls out whatever you have planted. That's the first challenge. Challenge number 2, you are working in an area that is already dry. That means the first input you need is water, because you want to plant trees, and plant trees will not survive with only the rainwater they receive. Believe me, sometimes they receive less than 2 months rain a year. Now, you need to provide water infrastructure, not only for the small seedlings you planted, but also for the community to be able to have potable water. On the assumption that if they are using that facility will be protected without you putting additional effort. But it's not always the case. We have a very serious issue of vandalization of our infrastructure, especially water infrastructure.
Perhaps the most daunting of the challenges the agency faces in the discharge of its mandate is the destruction wreaked by animals, which, in the absence of designated routes, graze on the green vegetation being developed by the National Agency for the Great Green Wall.
We are working in an area where you have high number of animals, livestock, goats, cattle, camel, and this camel come from outside this country. As soon as you put down what you want to plant, and because the area is generally dry, anything green is attractive to the livestock. They eat it all. They browse it, they eat it, and they go. And remember, this area we walk form the major arteries where animals move from West Africa, other West African countries, to the Benue area where there is fertile land, there is a lot of grazing fodder, there is a lot of water to drink.
Apart from working to revitalize millions of hectares of land, protect the threatened biodiversity and strengthen social infrastructure in the rural areas, the National Agency for the Great Green Wall has introduced programs aimed at improving the living conditions of the affected communities through targeted empowerment and skills acquisition initiatives.
And there are 5 trades we are training them in, from tailoring to weaving to soap making to pomade making. We are training them in all that. The beauty of the training is the fact that after you've been trained for 10 days, if you are trained in tailoring, we give you a brand new sewing machine, some clothes to start with, so when you get back you don't have to look for money to start that, some threads and other things, and then give it to you. When you get back, you continue from that. Now if you have that in your house, you won't go and cut trees again to sell. So these are some of the livelihood activities we are doing. As I said earlier, we're also doing our community garden, where they have a vegetable garden, harvest, sell, share the money, invest the rest, and the life continues like that. This, we believe, will take them away from taking more out of the very mega natural resources they have in their area.
An ambitious green wall spanning thousands of kilometers holds the promise of a solution to the many ecological threats arising from climate change, drought, famine, conflict, and migration.